Renel unleashes her flapping powers upon the monsters, and a giant sparkle takes over Ivol's entire body. A fascinating sequence follows as the blonde prince is about to be transformed into an overpowered werewolf. But the issue here is that the process is extremely painful for him. He is unable to bear the pain, and wishes to die this very moment, but decides against it when he remembers the sacrifice his soldiers had put in for him. Ivol gets motivated by these memories and vows to make their deaths count, so he pushes forward and withstands the pain so that he can complete his transformation and bring honor to his family's name. A dramatic burst of light blinds everyone, and then we witness a narrative text. It explains that God had created many magnificent beasts, but the wolf was the most prominent one of them all. On top of that, the wolf was also a beast that had shared its powers with select humans who had godly blood flowing through their veins. This had actually led to the birth of people like Ivol who were naturally chosen to carry out their leadership roles. After this narration, we witness an intense transformation that turns Ivol into a giant werewolf with power so great that he defeats all the hyena monsters with a single blow. After the blinding lights dim down, Renel is relieved that her lover boy has gained his true powers. But she is also bleeding badly, so she falls to the ground having completed her mission to distract the monsters. Ivol turns back into a blonde prince and saves Renel from falling to the ground, after which he laments the fact that she chose to stay behind and defend him so that he could complete his wolf powers. He is clearly upset that a bird as intelligent as our hero would stay back for an emotional reason, but there's no time to sit and complain about what has happened, so Ivol decides to take Renel with him so that he can fix her up. The couple walks away, and then Renel wakes up having recovered from her earlier injuries. She's a bit confused to see where she is, and wonders for how long she was knocked out. The crow hero's body starts to ache with great pain, but then she opens her eyes to see Ivol with a doctor who looks shady, but seems effective. A blonde prince is heard asking the doctor to take care of Renel because she is very dear to his heart and he cannot afford to lose her just yet. Our hero has no idea what the doctor is going to do to cure her, but the funniest part is that her words can still be heard as a crow cawing its heart out. The doctor proceeds to perform healing magic on Renel, and she is shocked just as much as we are when she realizes that the mage doctor is actually serving Ivol. It doesn't take long for our hero to recover, and she lets out screams of joy, after which she flies towards Ivol to get some love. The blonde prince asks the crow girl to calm down because all he can hear are her cawing sounds. However, he understands that Renel cares for him, so he calmly takes her in his arms and gives her a nice hug. After reassuring our hero that they are in a safe place, Ivol further explains that the house they're in belongs to one of his knights, and the doctor he used for her injuries is actually a priest with magical powers. The priest acts shy upon hearing some praises from Ivol, and tries to play down the issue by saying he would never have used his powers on a crow had it not been for his master Ivol. Now, Renel takes a moment to soak in what's happened and is glad that she doesn't feel any pain, almost as if her body is brand new now. At first, she wonders if this is because holy powers were there to heal her, and then we see the priest bidding farewell to Ivol as he's done with his job. The blonde prince promises to pay the priest for his services and waits for the door to shut. This is because he wants to hug Renel out of relief that she is alive. Ivol exclaims how happy he is that his trusted crow is by his side because he was very worried about whether she was going to wake up. As expected, this puts our hero in a trance as she cannot believe her boy crush is showing her so much love. This is a bit too much for her to handle, and all types of thoughts explode in her head, probably because this is as close as she's ever going to get to a boy who looks like an idol. Such an experience makes Renel consider fainting again because she's a virgin and has never even been touched before. This explains why a simple hug from an attractive prince is more than enough for her to lose steam. She starts to feel dizzy and begs the gods of modesty to save her. But the biggest problem here is that she is still in the body of a crow, which means there isn't much she can do to exploit the moment. She turns into a depressed bird and curses the fact that one day, Ivol is going to marry a human lady and make many babies with her. This is an honor that Renel wants to enjoy, but she doesn't have the biology for it, so she has to be happy with being a pet for now. All these anxious thoughts take Renel on a roller coaster of emotions that eventually turns out to be a bit too much for her to handle. This results in Renel breaking free from Ivol's arms while screaming how she's in an unfair world. However, Ivol misinterprets her caw sounds and wonders if he had squeezed her too hard during the hug. Renel continues to cry in a hilarious fashion, and the blonde prince apologizes for his hug without realizing her true intentions. Now, our hero decides to break the fourth wall, and she says that if her life were to be made into a manga series, then it would be called The Crow's Prince, which is in fact true. Now, Ivol has a heartful session with Renel and explains how he is thankful to her for all the help she has offered him. This extends to each and every act she has committed for him, and he also expresses an apology for not thanking her enough for her efforts. There is one thing that Ivol can offer, and that's his loyalty. He promises Renel that he will never neglect her, and it makes the crow girl blush out of embarrassment. This is a dream come true for our hero, because she knows that Ivol is as perfect as they come. She proudly perches herself on top of his shoulder and snuggles up to him, hinting that she has forgiven him for putting her in danger. However, Renel is also determined to keep the blonde prince to herself, and she will not let him ever get close to another woman for as long as she lives. Our hero becomes a bit too dramatic, and her behavior somewhat heats up the room as pointed out by Ivel. There's more to add to the drama though, as we hear knocking on the door, followed by a handsome young man stepping into the room. He addresses Ivel as Her Majesty and expresses his joy over seeing his lord safe and sound. The young man's name is revealed to be Windsor, and Ivel is also glad to see him after so long. However, Renel seems to recognize Windsor, and it doesn't take long for her to identify his full name and reveal to us that he is also a character from the game she used to play. Her first guess is that Windsor might have been a knight, but doesn't seem to recall what his personality was like. She doesn't have to wait for long, because Windsor drops to the floor and apologizes to Ivel for being unable to protect him when times were bad. He is genuinely upset with himself, but takes it a step too far by declaring he should be killed for committing a sin so seriously. He even points his own sword at his neck, and while Ivel seems to be neutral in this regard, Renel cannot take such a sight because it is her job to ensure that all handsome men are protected under her watch. Before she can do anything dramatic herself, Ivel luckily steps in and slaps the sword away from Windsor's hands. He proceeds to berate him for taking things so seriously, but also says that he appreciates his concern. This is good news for our hero, as she believes that even Ivel doesn't want handsome men to die for no reason. Windsor is still feeling guilty, but Ivel reassures him that the situation was not under his control, as he had already been sent away on His Majesty's orders. The blonde prince is simply glad because his trusted knight didn't lose and chose to stay with the army rather than giving in to Llewellyn. Windsor is amazed to hear this, and Ivel adds on to the seriousness of the scene by making him promise to always stand by his side and protect him, no matter what. This overwhelms Windsor, so he immediately picks up his fallen sword and offers it to Ivel as a form of subservience. He then vows to protect his prince no matter what the cost, even if it turns out to be his own life. It is this behavior that reminds Renel of Windsor's character in the game. He is supposed to be blindly faithful to Ivel, and is willing to lay down everything to keep him safe. The blonde prince is a little taken aback by what he has just heard, and asks Windsor if he will be the same way even if he were never to use his wolf powers again. Windsor blindly answers in subjugation, so Ivel proudly anoints him as his knight. It's a wholesome moment, but Renel is a little confused because Ivel can definitely transform into a werewolf now. So, it doesn't make sense for him to hide this fact from his own knights who are to assist him in battle. Unfortunately for our hero, she is still a crow, so it's not like she can ask questions as of now. She decides she'll find out sooner or later anyway, and decides to carry on with her lover boy. Now, Windsor asks Ivel how he was able to escape from the demon soldiers earlier, because he was clearly wounded the last time he saw him. That's when Ivel realizes he hasn't introduced Renel to Windsor, so he signals to his crow to land on his arm. Windsor is a bit surprised to see such a bond between His Highness and a crow, but he also recalls that he had seen Renel on top of Ivel's shoulder not too long ago. The loyal knight tries his best to hide his doubts, but he is clearly an amateur when it comes to masking his emotions. Ivel spots this and reassures him that he knows the dangers of being associated with an ominous bird. However, he explains how helpful Renel has been to him right from when she rescued him from the orcs till getting herbs for his recovery. The blonde prince proceeds to give Renel a pat on her head, and she visibly enjoys the attention, even calling out to Windsor to witness the love. Ivel adds that he would not be alive right now if it wasn't for Renel, and it makes Windsor gasp out of disbelief. This primarily due to his own perception of the blonde prince, whom he believes is amazing and humble to say the least. Windsor laments that Llewellyn has already summoned his wolf powers, and he is also called the third prince. Then, he continues to praise Ivel by commenting on how he's able to smile even with the bird of death resting on his arm. Things get a little awkward because Windsor hits fanboy mode and even simps for His Majesty because he considers his character to be flawless. He believes that even a bird like a crow is willing to serve Ivel, so it only makes sense that he is the chosen leader of his kingdom. As expected, things get a little dark as Windsor sees Renel as a competitor rather than an ally. He even challenges her to a battle to see who's better suited to serve Ivel. Our hero is visibly disturbed to see such a weird aura from Windsor and fears that she still has a long way to go before she can gain favor with the loyal knight. The time for fun and games are over, so Ivel gets down to asking some serious questions. He wants to know what's been happening since he was away, and Windsor explains that he has been declared missing because his body wasn't found amongst the giant pile of fallen soldiers. This is an interesting piece of information for the blonde prince, and he knows that this is the work of Llewellyn. Windsor adds that the third prince even laid out a search party for Ivel and supposedly begged his father to get to work. But the blonde prince knows very well that Llewellyn is a horrible actor. As a matter of fact, he is certain that the third prince has all but confessed his role in this carefully orchestrated murder mission. However, Ivel also learns that his father granted an imperial sanction to Llewellyn after the whole charade. It's no surprise to the blonde prince because his father only cares about who's going to take the throne next. After hearing all of this, Renel becomes emotional and laments the sorry state of the royal family. She is saddened by the fact that two brothers have to fight each other for the crown, even though the throne is a highly valued asset. Our hero wants to make her lover boy feel better, so she cuddles against him and he feels nice to see her love. Ivel pats Renel on the head and promises her that he is going to come out on top of this situation, because he has no intention to give up the second life that he's been granted. Windsor is simply amazed to see how closely Ivel is hugging the crow, but the blonde prince wants to inform his father that he is still alive. Windsor is worried that Ivel will expose his location, but he is confident that his brother isn't going to try any smart tricks with him in the palace. Ivel is actually hoping for Llewellyn to attack him because then he can just transform into a werewolf and give him a taste of his own medicine. The next day, a carriage is prepared to take our heroes to the Imperial Palace, and Renel gets very excited by the prospect. She's always wanted to see what the palace would look like in real life after having played the game, but she also needs to be alert because the enemy is lurking around there. It is this situation that makes her feel thankful for being a crow and not a woman here, because that would have led to a lot of controversy and scandal. Renel is glad to be a pet for Ivel, and then she happily greets him on top of his luggage. The mood is very romantic for Renel, but all her dreams come crashing down when she is abruptly locked inside a birdcage. It's a hilarious sequence, and Ivel does apologize for the temporary inconvenience, but Renel calls him out for being a traitor. She feels that this is a case of karma, because she used to do the same thing to other animals back when she was a zookeeper. However, the crow girl doesn't accept her current situation and hurls abuses at her Prince Charming, even though he can't understand a word. The blonde prince decides to take care of the matter himself, but Renel becomes a bit too frisky and it leads her to feel very dizzy. It makes her want to throw up and she passes out for a bit, so Ivel decides to let her out of the cage while they're still in the carriage. The blonde prince asks Renel if she's okay, but she activates her demon crow mode and angrily bites his fingers to express her frustration with the way she's been treated. Ivel nervously lands a few strokes on her, and while she initially acts tough, Renel eventually gives in and melts to the soft touches of her lover boy. Ivel goes on to explain that he didn't want to leave Renel behind, which was why he decided to bring her along in a cage. He doesn't even care if she is actually a dragon in disguise and plants a kiss on her beak to show his love. This is a huge moment for Renel as she totally loses her mind after getting such a sweet kiss from her lover boy. Her craziness continues to dominate her mind, but Ivel states that there will be some enemies to face once they reach the palace. Renel realizes that her lover boy is only revealing these facts to her because he thinks of her as a simple bird incapable of speaking. This would never have happened if Renel was in her human form, but even then, she decides to give Ivel a kiss and snuggles up to him while blushing. She's thankful that these blushes can't be seen through her black feathers, but then her excitement explodes once more when she sees the Imperial Palace. The duo go to Ivel's room and Renel immediately starts plotting a robbery. But then she reminds herself that she's a human, not a crow. Renel's mouth starts drooling, but she manages to avoid any embarrassment as Ivel decides to leave her alone for a while. He instructs his butler to take care of Renel, and also warns him of dire consequences if he's caught mistreating her. The butler shivers out of fear and calls Renel a bird of death, but he's got his orders, so he gives her some food. Unfortunately, this food turns out to be disgusting worms, and it makes our hero squirm out of disgust. Her cries are heard by Ivel, but he simply thinks he's imagining things. Then, he finally bumps into Llewellyn, who tries to act concerned for his brother. However, Ivel has already played this game before, so he gives a condescending reply, and it makes the third prince visibly annoyed. The blonde prince is glad to have won round one, but what lies in store for us? Like, share, and subscribe to find out more in the next video. See you soon.